The tragic death of Houdini. Let's talk about Harry Houdini. He's the most famous magician to ever live, and well, honestly, he's one of the most famous people to ever live. Today, it's not about how he lived, it's about how he died. And to me, that is a super interesting story. So, how did Harry Houdini die? Let's jump right in. Oh, damn it. Harry Houdini died October 31st, 1926, as you can see on this plaque right here. Yes, on Halloween. People always get the when right, but they don't always get the how. For example, this plaque behind me, it's from the Art Gallery of Ontario. They had a touring exhibition featuring all the famous magicians of history, and this is one of the plaques off of their wall. Yeah, they gave it to me, because I'm cool like that. On this plaque, they tell the most common story, but it's also not super accurate. To tell this in the right order, I have to tell this in the wrong order, so let me jump around a little bit. Houdini was a master magician, a master escape artist, and a master self-promoter. I mean, that's probably the main reason why we all still talk about him. October 22nd, 1926, Houdini was performing at McGill University in Montreal. After the show, he invited some students backstage, and they're in the dressing room having a chat. He was a very physically fit man, and he used to make outrageous claims. So he would say things like, "I could withstand any man's punch." One of the students there, J. Gordon Whitehead, asked Houdini if it was true. Could he really withstand any man's punch? Houdini said yes. But before Houdini could prepare himself, Whitehead wound up and delivered 4 or 5 well-aimed blows into Houdini's abdomen.
Ring-a-ding-ding!
This obviously hurt Houdini, and later on the night he was complaining of stomach pain. But since Houdini is Houdini, he carried on. He went to Detroit the next night to perform, but his stomach pain got considerably worse. By the time the show was over and the final curtain fell, he collapsed backstage and he had a temperature of 104 degrees. And hey, I'm not a doctor, but I know that ain't good. They rushed him to the hospital and prepped him for surgery. Apparently he had a burst appendix. They were able to remove his appendix, but it had already poisoned the rest of his body. And on October 31st, he died. Now to me, this is where the story gets very interesting. Why did his appendix rupture? In 1926, the official ruling was the punches from J. Gordon Whitehead were what ruptured his appendix. But since then, there's been studies that show only a couple dozen cases where someone can get hit hard enough to rupture their appendix. So given that it's extremely rare, is that what really happened? Well, there's a whole faction of people that believed he was murdered. Yeah, isn't that wild? To understand that, you gotta understand this. Houdini was many things. King of cards, king of sleight of hand, king of escapes. No lock could hold him. But he also hated spiritualism. He even spoke in front of Congress trying to get a bill passed to outlaw all fortune-telling and psychics in Washington, D.C. Like, he hated them, and, well, they hated him. Some people think that the spiritualists were the ones that actually killed him. I mean, come on, that's a fun story. But there's no evidence to support that, so I'm not buying it. Little side note, Houdini hated spiritualism so much that him and his wife made a pact. He said that if he was to die before her, he would try to communicate with her from beyond the grave. This code? It was simple. 2 words. Rosabelle, believe. Every year, on the night of Houdini's death, his wife Bess held a seance. October 31st, for 10 years in a row, and unless she heard the secret code, she was not to believe any psychic that says they were communicating with Houdini beyond the grave. And she never heard those 2 words. So after 10 years, in 1936, she gave up. But every year, thousands of people have taken up her place and still try to communicate with Houdini. So far, well, you guessed it, nobody's been able to. So, back to how he died. The conspiracy people want you to believe that it was some crazy plot by the spiritualists to have Houdini murdered. It was an assassination attempt. No evidence. And the Art Gallery of Ontario, along with pretty much most common knowledge about how Houdini died, was that he was punched in the stomach so hard it ruptured his appendix and he died from the medical fallout of that. I do like that story. It's concise and it is dramatic enough, and it's kind of a very interesting death to an extremely interesting man. But I don't think that's the truth either. What the skeptical doctors believe is that Houdini already had appendicitis. And the punches from Whitehead did nothing except make his stomach really sore, which was masking the pain of the appendicitis. And because Houdini thought he was just hurt from the punches, he wasn't taking the pain as seriously as he would have been. So the skeptical doctors think his appendix was going to rupture anyways. It was just those punches that kind of gave him a reason to ignore the pain. So as stubborn as Houdini was, his appendix was probably going to burst anyways, and the outcome was probably going to be the same. It's not as sexy of a story, and definitely not something you'd want to put on a plaque at the art gallery. And because this is almost 100 years ago, you can choose to believe any story you want. But the skeptics believe this one, and Houdini was a skeptic, and most magicians are skeptics, so I'm going to side with that. This is the most accurate information I can find, and to be honest, when you think about it, it kind of makes the most sense. It may not be as colorful, and you might not want to make a movie about it, but damn is it fascinating to me. There has been over 150 books written about Houdini, and they all tell this story slightly differently. So however you hear it, I hope you enjoy it. I find this endlessly fascinating, and that's why it's one of the 2 plaques that made it onto my office wall. Thanks for watching this, team, and let's keep the discussion going in the comments, because I'm sure everyone has tons of things to say about Houdini, and I am all ears. Any Houdini fact, I definitely want to hear it. Thanks again for coming out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm gonna get out of this thing now, and I used to be quite good at this. Haven't done it in a while, so you guys carry on, and I'll just try and get out of this. You guys, I got this. You guys head out. That's okay. I used to be good at this, I swear. Come on. Too tired. You gonna watch this part? You still gonna stay here? Oh my God. Need some help?